So the session today in particular talks about scapes and the diversity in environment and perspectives. So what benefits the session than ecoscapes, and what more affects the ecoscape than the building sector? Now, speaking of which, the UN released its global status report in 2019, claiming that the sector contributes up to 39% of the global annual energy related CO2 emissions and accounts for about 36% of the final energy use. So indeed, that's a situation here that poses threat to the complete idea of structuring a sustainable built environment for the future. This study today, I will try to highlight how the traditional architecture of Kangra stands as solid artifactual evidence of the indigenous ecoscape of the place and how it can evidently support a green future for the area. With that, greetings from India, everyone. I present to you a case study of earthen dwellings in the ecoscape of Western Himalayan district of Kangra, Himachal Pradesh, India. Let's just begin with discussing what are the different focal questions that this presentation is going to revolve around. First is, what is the traditional technique of architecture practiced at the district of Kangra? Then we try to understand how this construction pattern complement the ecoscape of the district. Our third question aims at finding if the architecture in the place is still being practiced as per the ecology or not. And lastly, and most importantly, how can a progressive relationship be established among environment, culture, and development? So the district exhibits the pattern of mud constructions, also popularly known as adobe construction. It is a simple community-based practice. It relies completely upon the locally sourced materials and primarily involves the use of sun-dried earthen bricks, stone blocks, timber, and slate. But because these traditional works of architecture, they stand on rough mountainous terrains, the first step that goes to the construction process is preparing a plain base for the building to stand upon. This place is usually called as terrace in the area, and it enhances the sturdiness and stability of the building, which is further complemented by a stone plinth. The plinth makes the foundation of the building. It raises the construction ground up to a certain height, above which then the process is further continued. The earthen bricks are laid in walls. The walls are underpropped with wooden beams, both from the outside and from the inside, so as to structure actually a strong support for the base of the second story and the roof of the first, as seen in the picture here. Now, the next step in the process is framing the interiors. The interiors are framed with wooden joists, and to facilitate your understanding more, here are two pictures, one on the top right and the other on the bottom left corner of your screens. So the wooden joists, they are equidistantly placed, and the gap in between them is then filled with a combination of slate tile and stone rubble. This combination acts as a flexible mortar, which is known in the area to distribute the shock wave outwards onto the whole construction, thereby minimizing the fatal damage actually at time of earthquakes. The last two steps in the process are framing preparing the balconies and roofing the construction. So the projecting balcony facades are supported by cantilever wooden beam at the base and vertical standing columns, which are attached to the roof. For the roof, the ceilings are first covered by a framework of wooden rafters, upon which then the slate shingles are laid down and the construction is completed. So the design usually receives its final touch-up at the end, where the complete house is either mud plastered or occasionally painted. But the question still remains that why they are known to harmonize well with man's bioclimatic spatial settings. So to answer that well, first there are three important ecological features that need to be factored in here. First is weather and climate. Then we try to understand the seismicity of the area, and lastly, how much rainfall does the place receive. So the climate in the place generally varies from subtropical to subhumid. However, during the winter times, the temperature can hover even below 0 degrees Celsius. So there is a persistent problem of snow in the area. Then the state in itself is very prone to earthquakes. But Kangra, the district of Kangra, is about 98.6% susceptible to experience earthquakes of high intensity and heavy destructivity. Lastly, as depicted in the line graph provided, the district receives highest level of precipitation compared to the complete state of Himachal Pradesh. But the question still remains, what makes this architecture eco-sensitive? Why they are called climate-responsive buildings? So to that, first, because primarily they involve the use of locally available and naturally sourced materials, they minimize the amount of waste generation in the process. Then the use of adobe bricks and a flexible mortar, as I discussed earlier, makes these dwellings very light frame structures, thereby leaving the chances of fatal damage at time of seismic shocks next to zero. Now, in addition to that, what's interesting is that slate is known for its low water absorption index, almost 0.4%, and for its high heat storing capacity, along with the properties of longevity and durability, making it a preferable material of construction, specifically in places like Himachal, which is famous for its frequent episodes of rain and snowfalls. It is also made sure that the openings are kept small so as to guarantee thermal comfort. Further, the wooden rafters and timber that's used inside enhances the thermal performance. And because they're mud plastered, they reflect back heat waves during summers, keeping these constructions warm during winters and cool during summers. Not only that, these mud plastered adobe constructions, they are also very consonant with the ecoscape in a sense that they're very energy efficient in their design. So they reduce our energy use and electricity cost, and are also very adaptable to benefit from all modern amenities. So from all the home energy features to other important facilities, they are all well supported and provided in these designs. But the functional configuration now is also very interesting and worth mentioning here. There are little nooks left in the walls of these houses, which serve the purpose of cupboards and racks, thereby adding on to the spatial efficiency of these houses. So clearly this technique has so much to offer. But this is where our third question comes into picture. Is the architecture in the place is still being practiced as per the ecology or not? And the answer to that is in the title itself. The architecture is gradually fading in the area, and there are different reasons to it. Of course, there's a lack of awareness about the need of climate responsive buildings, but the youth is also mistaking this architecture as an underperforming niche. Apart from that, there's a clouded understanding of the definition of the word development among the people. They're confusing it with practices of the developed countries. And lastly, the slate quarries are being shut down. Now, while all four are here contributing factors affecting the disappearance of this technique in the district Kangra, the shutting down of slate quarries have had some major impacts actually. As the mines were shut down, the local laborers, they lost their source of income. People were compelled to move out in search of financial security, and the prices for the tiles took off drastically. So there was a huge inflation in the building costs noticed in the area, due to which people were driven towards other construction alternatives. So the aluminum sheets, they replaced the slate tiles, the concrete replaced the adobe bricks. And before you could know, the cultural distinctiveness of a community was partially overshadowed by a concrete jungle, as well represented in the picture provided. But we're not just talking about the disappearance of any architectural technique here. We are actually talking about a kind of organ failure causing the slow death of an authentic culture, because in many ways, this architecture talks about the cultural value of the community involved. It is more of a traditional practice that imparts the community its unique identity. But the problem is that this cultural value in the place is seldom linked with its monetary value. And there's a huge gap between these two values. So how to bridge this gap is a question that takes us back to our last focal question, which was, how can a progressive relationship be established here among environment, culture, and development? So what is that one piece of thread that can tie it up all together is the actual question here. And the answer to that is an efficient economic system. What is required in the area is a kind of economic system that can refine the complete idea of growth and development for the future. One that is able to identify the cultural variables well and produces services and products in a way that signify a cultural meaning attached to the product. And in the building and construction sector, what is required is a kind of green economic solution that is ecologically, economically, and also very culturally efficient. One that gives way to local participation, one that reflects on the cultural identity of the community, and also creates quite a lot of income opportunities for the local. Now, one piece of puzzle that fits perfectly here is village-based vernacular ecotourism. The proposition here is that the economy can highly be benefited by presenting this architecture as product of culture, specifically when we talk about the sector of tourism. Not only will it link the cultural value of these dwellings to their monetary values, but they'll also promote heritage and generate more income opportunities for the domestic industry. Now, the question has to arise, what is the cultural value attached to this architecture? What makes this architecture more of culture, or why does it concern us? So to that, architecture, when practiced while keeping one's cultural identity in mind, becomes an integral part of the material culture. It allows us to decipher the cultural identity of a community. It mimics the local traditions and way of lives of the community involved. And most importantly, They highlight the historical background of the people, and to exemplify that, interestingly, there exists an architectural disparity between the eastern and the western parts of Himachal Pradesh. Now, what's more intriguing here is that the architectural pattern practiced in Kangra share quite a lot commonalities with that practiced in Central Asia, specifically cities of Afghanistan, including Kabul and Kandahar. So this architectural commonality that Kangra, which falls in the western region of Himachal Pradesh, shares with Central Asia, and the disparity that exists between eastern and western Himachal Pradesh, talks a lot about the historical and ethnic links that Central Asia and Kangra have shared since 7th century CE, further strengthening my case in point here that they do reflect on how community has flourished through time. With that, I'd like to conclude my presentation here and round it off back to the UN's Global Status Report. Introducing this architecture and these climate responsive buildings, as we can call them now, into the tourism sector will not only allow us to restructure the natural capital of the place and not just help us in reducing the carbon footprint, which the time demands, but it will also allow us to bring ecological and cultural experiences to the outsiders. People will learn more about the community, about the cultural practices of the community. The community will get its cultural recognition, and not just on a local scale, but on a global scale. So all in all, practicing this vernacular architecture in the sector of tourism as form of vernacular ecotourism will ensure the management of this architectural heritage, not just for next 20 to 30 years, but for generations to come. With that, we get to the part where I thank you all for your time and attention and stop sharing my screen here.